Tonight we will have Ananda Sinclair, Ananda Sim, Scott, McNaughton, and Leonie Rogers. As you can see some people in the background, if you'd like to turn to mute, that'd be great. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat function on your Google Meet screen. Our moderator for tonight, Adrian Weir, will pose questions at the end of each artist talk. So I'm looking forward to this. I'll hand it over to Adrian and Adam. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross, and thank you all. Before we get tonight's meeting going underway, just wanted to take a few minutes to dedicate tonight's presentation to Jamie Mercier. Jamie Mercier was a Melbourne photographer, street photographer, who worked, I had work presented in many publications and journals, including The Age and Time magazine. He's got photos held in the National Portrait Gallery and the National Library of Australia. He's been involved in many books and also published a solo book called Little Big Town about the streets and lanes of Melbourne. Jamie opened the 2019 Street Beats held at Michael's for Aspie, and I just found out late yesterday that Jamie had passed away. Jamie was a friend and a mentor to me, so I'm quite upset by what's happened, Jamie's passing. So yes, as I said there, for tonight I'd like to dedicate the meeting to Jamie, so let's move on from there. So our first speaker tonight will be Adam Sinclair. Adam's work is, great. So I'll just go there. I'll pass on to Adam. And Adam, can you just give us a bit about your photographic background and your sort of journey up to the 2021 SITHOM?
Sure, Adrian. So nice to be here, and I have the honour of setting the bar phenomenally low for everyone, so you're welcome. Photographic background, I'm not sure, it's hard to know when like an artistic discovery starts, really, isn't it, to sort of pinpoint that. I suppose we often think about when I first bought a camera, which was like many years ago, and then I put it down. I sort of like forgot about making sort of art and creativity, and I actually attended one of Scott's classes at PSC many years ago, which I have very fond memories of. That was me trying to sort of get back into it and rediscover it. And I remember feeling very compelled by what Scott was saying. And then I sort of forgot about it. And I don't know, photography just ceased to exist in my mind for a while. And then a couple of years ago, I was sort of on a bit of a sort of a journey of sort of rediscovery, I guess. And I picked up my camera again. I thought, oh gosh, I wonder what I can do with this. This is a very interesting thing. And I'd heard that street photography existed. That it was a thing, and I thought, oh gosh, I want to maybe I could go out and try that. And so I sort of walked out onto street photography. So I guess that means I need to be on a street. So I walked onto a street, and I thought, I wasn't really quite sure what to do, and so I just started pressing the button, and they mostly came out. They mostly looked like I was taking these rather gorgeous abstract pictures, but they weren't. I just couldn't focus my camera properly, and they all came out blown out and just awful. And so that's kind of how I got started. But as I sort of spent more time out there, it wasn't that I started passionate about it. I think I did it, and I thought, oh, that was really nice. I might do that again, as we do with lots of things. And then I did it again and again and again. And I thought, oh, this is getting better and better. And so I just kept doing the thing. And then I sort of arrived at feeling quite passionate about it, I guess. And that's kind of where I am. So, did that answer your question, Adrian? I don't know if it did.
No, it's perfect, Adam. There's no direct answer. It's some of your journey. So do you want to share your screen? And
yeah, absolutely. I'll share. I'll see if this works. And if this crashes the whole thing, then forgive me. Right. Can everyone sort of see that? Is that a thing that's happening?
Yep.
Great. Awesome. So I guess I'm supposed to talk about this now and what it is and why I took it, which is weird because taking pictures is very different to talking about pictures, isn't it? This is a picture of a hand. You're welcome. But most importantly, I love this image because in my work I do sort of try to leave as much as I can to people's imaginations. And this man in my imagination is named Bill. and Bill is a tram driver, and I remember very sort of accurately that the day I was actually on my way to get some prints done for the first time, and I saw him up the front of the tram there, and the light was particularly spectacular, and it had a lot of colours in there that I just adored, and I thought it was a really delightful sort of way to capture someone in that most interesting thing that we all do all the time, which is work. But it also had this beautiful color palette, this beautiful aged, wrinkled hand, and just that nice little sort of press of the button there. Yeah, so I heard once someone talk about something that punctuates an image, and that everything should have some punctuation. And for me, it's just he's sort of pressing the button there of letting the passengers letting them in. So that's Bill anyway. Yeah, I just move on, Adrian?
Go ahead, yeah.
There we go. So this is Cherie. Again, one of the things that I find super interesting, I'm very attuned to what people wear. I was actually coming back from St Kilda that day. I drunk at least half my body weight in beer, looking at the water, and I was coming back on the tram, also full of young people dressed in the most fabulous and wonderful things, also semi-intoxicated. And there was just so many people everywhere, and it was just interesting to observe the little sort of accoutrements that we have, I guess, and the way that we kind of set ourselves apart from each other. And this woman's foot really stood out for me. You can sort of imagine maybe the person that it was attached to, and there she was a very sort of she occupied a lot of sort of like space. She had this would look like she had a wonderful sort of energy about her, and but this was just a small slice of her that I felt said a lot. So that's Cherie anyway. This next image here is another image taken in sort of the Melbourne CBD. Colour is something that I really adore. I kicked off black and white as I started sort of my photographic journey, and I soon realised that actually colour was what I loved more than anything. There are too many people that do amazing black and white, so I'll leave that to them. But just sky and this man's gesture is absolutely enough. And he of course is reasonably obscured, and a little bit of sort of a nice sort of just minimal approach there. He was particularly blinded on that day, and just an interesting character. And I happened to be right up in his face right then, which was really lovely. So. This is my last one, and probably my favourite one, because I just happened to be on the wrong train that day after a day of miserable failed shooting. We all know what that feels like when you spend 3 hours on the street and you come home with trash. It feels very, very sad. And I was on the train going home, and I thought, oh, that was such a terrible waste of time. And then I realised that I was on the wrong train, and I thought, oh my gosh, this day is just a nightmare. And I was on the train, and I saw this young gentleman actually standing next to me, and he just had this most fascinating outfit to me anyway. And there was something about the texture and the color and the light that fell on him. And I was standing right next to him, and I think he was quite cognizant that I was taking a picture of him, because I didn't really care at that point, because I was trying to salvage my miserable sort of photographic day. And he'd sort of started to sort of just look at himself and his own reflection as we passed through a tunnel on the train. And I just stared at him for a long time, and took that picture. And it's still one of my favorite pictures ever. I don't know what it is about it, but he just sort of struck me as a person that was maybe perhaps on an interesting journey, and certainly a person that seemed very alone in his own space. So, and that's Jude. It's the last image. So that, I think is that the last image that I have? Oh, and there we go. Here's the last one here. This is Julian, who I imagine to be a semi-successful sort of business person, semi-high-flying, maybe wealth manager of some kind. Anyway, this is actually taken in Collins Street in the city, which is a notoriously sort of businessy district down sort of the William Street end. And I tailgated this man for quite a long time. He didn't take out any restraining orders against me, which was very lovely. He was dressed in brown. It was a very monochromatic. His shoes were brown, his pants were brown, his vest was brown, his jacket was brown, his glasses were brown, his hair was extraordinarily brown, and only like a little sort of sneaky bit of his sock there, I think, is blue, which was a real fashion misstep on his behalf there. And I tailgated him for a long time. He took a very sharp turn into a bakery. I remember walking down Collins Street, and I got this rather sort of delicious moment of Shadow and Julian's leg there, with just a little bit of his briefcase there, and I thoroughly was happy with that one when I got home. But yeah, but that's Julian anyway. So that's my 5 images. There we go. That's the
Awesome.
thing.
Thanks, Adam. That was awesome. Mike Reed asked, did Cherie know when you took the photo?
No, I remember that day really well, actually, and I don't think Cherie knew. Yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of looking down anyway, aren't they? Because they're trying to pretend that there's no one else there, that they're all sort of in their own bubble. But I do spend a lot of time looking at people's feet, as you can probably tell. Yeah, and Cherie was very busy. I think she had several children with her there as well, and the tram was just packed of people. You know, some of them were still drinking. It was really quite a chaotic scene on that particular tram on that day, and so I think Cherie had bigger concerns than some weird gingers staring at her feet on that particular day. So yeah, I got that one sneaky. But most of the time, I find my people don't know that I'm taking their picture. But Jude certainly knew that I was taking his picture, but for some reason he didn't seem to mind. So. That was kind of nice as well. But yeah, I've had 1 or 2 confrontations, I think, in my time, and so I generally try to be as much of a ninja as possible. I think, like most people, I prefer to just avoid engaging, avoid eye contact. I think that was good tip I had once. Don't make eye contact, and then you won't engage.
Good tip, Adam. Thanks. Any other questions for Adam? Here we go from Russell. Do you find it easier shooting people with a few beers under your belt? And how many people do you get per schooner?
Yeah, so I have a great day. I remember I thought, do you want to know what? I'm gonna do photos and beers, because they're two. I love beers, I love photos, so naturally 2 things that you love should go together, right? I guess that's the logic. But no, I did go out once and I thought, I'll have the beers first, because that's great, a little bit of free you up to kind of get on the street. It was a nightmare because I had several beers and then I didn't take any pictures at all. So yeah, so I don't do that anymore. Street photos tend to be a very sober and sobering experience. Yeah. So yeah, so there we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
No worries at all. So we'll move on now to Ananda Sim.
Hi.
Welcome, Ananda. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Cool.
So do you want to just give us, again, a bit of your photographic journey up to SITHOM 2021?
Okay. Well, first of all, before I go into that, I gotta say it's good for the team to bring us all together. Some of these days have been pretty depressing. Some of the days have been good. Some of the days have been pretty depressing, and it's nice to have something to look forward to every these Tuesdays. So thanks to the team for that. Where would I start? Maybe if I put my thing on. So if I go a window and choose that this is not in SITHOM. We can call that a test image. Did that go? Yes, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, looks good, Ananda.
Yeah. Everyone who starts with the camera takes a photo of themselves. And it's only recently I realized that Andreas Fenninger did that and started that. I don't know whether there was anyone earlier than him to do that. So here I am. This was several years into photography. This was, I think, first or second year university. And so I started photography in school. I had a family friend who was really keen to impart the skills, impart the love, and that's how this thing got to me. I would have done a lot of photography in uni in Monash, and then I went home to Malaysia, and things cooled down because you start work in Malaysia, and there's not a lot to take photos of, especially when there's no internet in those days. And British magazines and Life magazine. Remember Life magazine? Anyone remember Life magazine? Adrian, do you remember Life magazine?
I do. I certainly do.
Yeah, those lyrical essays of color and tone and emotion and culture. We don't get that anymore. But yeah, when you're at the other end of the world in the tropics, and you're looking at those lyrical stories, and you say, "Oh, I could never do that." And that's part of me, having gone through that stage. Then I got married, and I started work, got married, and I actually stopped photography for a few years. You just get caught up in your life. And then after that, I picked up again, just as digital was coming in and film was going out. I was taking too long to shoot a roll of film. So you see the current trend of people who shoot lots and lots of film. Well, film was always expensive, is always expensive. And finishing a roll was a real problem because it cost you to process it and all that. So it was good that digital came in, and with digital also the internet came in, and you could see each other's photos. So that's one of the good things that that has happened in photography. A lot of people say that digital has cheapened photography, has diluted it in some way, but it has brought a lot of motivation if you're looking for it. My first SITHOM was 2019. Was it 2019, Adrian? We didn't. We had
an exhibition in 2019, but I'm not sure which was your first one. Ananda.
Yeah, 2019. 2019. And I had 3 prints, and this is my second one. And I wanted to focus on less prints and bigger prints. And I wasn't sure about what I wanted to put up because I shoot a lot of close-up shots, often of people, not in their face. But I'm as reticent as Adam in shoving a camera into someone's face. And so you have to strike a balance. So I have a bunch of shots like that with recognizable faces. But then I said, oh, this isn't purely about that. This is about showing what you want to show to people. And people might want to buy the shot. In which case, then having too many faces in the photo dilutes your intent to actually sell a portrait, sell a print. So I submitted a bunch of shots, and I came up with these 3. So that one. Adrian, any questions or anything to?
There's one come up, but we'll go through at the end, Ananda. It's actually not related to SITHOM, but it's related to your Shoes Monday.
Yeah, I've got to load the browser with that. Shoes Monday is a theme, a tag that started in Google Plus. Google Plus was flourishing for photographers, and then it tapered off a bit, and then knowing Google killed it. And so we lost Google Plus, but the 4 of us curators decided to keep on doing it in Instagram. And so if you go into Instagram and type that hashtag, you will see quite a bit of activity every Monday and other days, because we don't hang on just for Monday. It's too much to hang on for just Monday. All right, this scene. So this scene, I think, embodies. It may not be 100% what I feel I want street photography to be, but it embodies a lot of joy, a feeling of freedom. And sometime in the past 10 years or something, I've said to myself, don't shoot the object, don't shoot the technique, shoot what you feel. And so most of the time these days now, I shoot what I feel from the scene. And this is a scene about freedom. It's not posed or anything. It's not staged. I think if I remember correctly, it was a Panasonic G9 demonstration. The guys from Sydney, Panasonic, came with all luggage and distributed lots of Panasonic gear for us to play. They didn't know that if you come to Melbourne at that time of the year and hang around about 6 p.m., 7 p.m., it gets very cold at the St Kilda foreshore. So these guys were shivering like crazy. So I remember that. I remember the camera. And I was thinking, oh, I have borrowed a lens that's not really nice for this shot, because this was 100 mil on micro four thirds, so about 250 mil. Not a very tele lens. And this, she was quite far away. She had come with some friends, and she decided to do that pose and do that dance. But I managed to recover enough quality so that it does come out nice on print. The other thing that I was worried about was the shade and solarization or posterization. And that didn't happen badly. And so you can see a shade in the sky. The birds are a bonus. And the past few weeks, we had a break in lockdowns. And the past few weeks, I said, oh, no, I need a bird in the sky. Without the bird in the sky, nothing works. And so now I'm looking for birds in the sky. So that's one, and I think it looks good. This one, any one of you can help me. It was between lockdowns. I'm part of another group, the Melbourne Walk and Shoot group, and they organize walks and all that. No criteria on skill level, no criteria on experience, no criteria on genre. You can shoot anything you want. And so I was shooting this, which is part of an art exhibit, and the list of art exhibits were on a website in 2020. I tried to find out who was the artist who made this display, and I can't find it. I can't find the traces. The website is still there, but the website is empty of content. So if anyone knows who the artist is or can throw me a line to find the information, I'm more than happy to get clues on that. This was shot with a fish, and a lot of very conservative street photographers says, no, you shouldn't be using funny gear. You should only be using a 35 mil on a Leica. And I said, oh, nah, I have had too much fun with a fisheye, Susan. So I said, and then people also, like I was trying to pull Adrian's leg about the Mac versus Windows. The photography community becomes sometimes a camera community, and they talk about this brand of camera versus that brand of camera. And you've got to buy this brand of camera. It's really good, and it's the only one. And if you have shot a camera for 30, 40, 50 years, you realize one thing. You've got a whole bunch of cameras with a whole bunch of brands. It doesn't matter. And you might have in your closet, yeah, I put the wallpaper so you can't see my closet. It's a mess. In your closet, you've got lots of cameras that don't work and some that do. And they're all different brands. So my feel or motivation is shoot what you like, use the gear what you like. And so this is a fisheye. It's pretty close. It curves the scene a lot. I have defished it. Defished it means that you have tried to restore a little bit of it. The person on the right gives that feeling of blur and motion and reality, and the smoothness and texture in the white figure is, for me, really attractive in the tones and the clarity. So that's what attracted me. Yep. So, and then the next one, yeah, if I can get it. This one was a surprise to me. Yeah, lots of you can shoot very sharp photos. You're very good at it. It's part of your job. I think 50-60% of my photos don't turn up sharp. I don't think it's my gear. I think it's me. I hesitate. I lose confidence. I get nervous when I press the shutter. And so that impacts a lot on my sharpness. More than the gear, more than how sharp the gear is. This one turned out sharp. And it is the thing that, to me, sells the mood. It's about the clarity of the coffee and the sugar. And you have on the outside a blurred, and it's not photoshopped or intentionally blurred. That's what it is. And I'm really happy with that because as Melbourne is so in love with coffee, that's Melbourne. So that's it. Yeah, Adrian.
Thanks, Ananda. And a couple of comments coming through are saying just that. Quintessential Melbourne, absolutely beautiful Melbourne.
Thank you.
You've got it there. So does anyone have any questions for Ananda?
And apologies if I went on for too long.
Yep. No, it was great to listen to you, Ananda. I've got Russell's just said that great choice in going with the large prints for this year, and they look fantastic in the SITHOM gallery, which I can only agree with there. So, and Angela says very crisp and beautiful images there, Ananda. So
thank you.
Nice feedback there for you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll if we've got no more questions, we'll move on to our next presenter. Thank you, Ananda. It was great to listen to you. Next presenter, who I'll let introduce himself, is Scott McNaughton. So you want to start off again with that little bit of a journey up to SITHOM 2021?
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, just thanks to ASPI for putting this on again, because I think it's a fantastic thing to do during lockdown. It's nights like these that you get a chance to reconnect with community, and as isolated as we all are at the moment, these things really do help, I think, keep us connected, definitely. Yeah, look, this is my first SITHOM. I've always shot street photography. It's been a passion of mine, and it's been a hobby. I am don't like to use the word professional photographer, but I have worked as a professional photographer for my whole working career. I started off through the college at PSC, started working for suburban newspapers with Fairfax, and have worked in newspapers for over 22 years now. So it's all I've ever known. I've laughingly always say I've never had a real job. I'm always out sort of taking photographs, but the work that I do for newspapers, and I currently still work for The Age and Victoria Police as well. So they're sort of my two main clients. But the work that I do as a professional photographer is very different to street photography. I have literally a ute full of gear when I'm working, and it's lights, it's light stands, it's boxes, it's cameras, it's camera bags, and all sorts of things. And it's very oppressive is probably the word that I choose, because it's so gear intensive. When it comes to street photography, it's such a detachment from that type of work, just walking around. And I think Adam sort of said it, just walking around being a ninja, with camera, not really engaging with people, disconnecting, being a tourist in your own backyard, I think is something that I enjoy, very, very much. So even though I work professionally, the stream of doing street photography is very, very personal for me. And I love Melbourne. I think the more that I travel, and obviously not traveled in the last 2 years, but the more that I get to travel around the world, I really do have a deeper appreciation for Melbourne, and I love photographing it. And I think I said a few years ago when I gave a talk at the SITHOM exhibition, I said that I love looking at Melbourne through other people's eyes. And when I got a chance to look at the exhibition this year, exact same thing. I just love seeing it differently through many different eyes of very different, and talented photographers. So I'm always in envy of looking at the other work of photographers. So I did muster up enough courage to put some prints in this year. COVID sort of rained on that parade a little bit, but it was nice to sort of go during the opening night and sort of see a lot of that work as well. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. So full disclosure, never used Google before, so this is going to be an interesting one. We tested this before and some sort of weird Doctor Who type thing happened. So we'll see what kind of happens in this space now. So
while you get that sorted, I'll say that this was your first SITHOM for an exhibiting, Scott, but you actually opened 2019 SITHOM, that's correct?
I did, and it was an absolute honour to be asked, because coming from somewhat humble beginnings, I'm almost embarrassed about my street photography and such, because it's something that I've only ever done for myself. I've never really done anything with it. So to be asked to sort of talk about this in front of, a group of somewhat intimidating like-minded souls, I found quite challenging. So I always said on the night that I was going to come back and actually exhibit work, and it took a while to sort of process that and go out and take images and then kind of present them. So fantastic community, absolutely in awe with it. And I think for me, it was kind of that disconnect between, being a professional photographer, but also in doing this as a hobby. And I'm always very mindful of the fact that street photography to me is a hobby. And again, kind of echoing what Adam was saying about this idea of you go out, you take photographs, you can spend a day in the city and not press the damn button once, because nothing presents and nothing kind of, comes of it. And you spend half the time looking for things that aren't actually there. And for me, I think I kind of suffer from what in military terms you'd call target fixation. So if I'm out shooting in the city, I'm always looking for certain things to photograph, and a lot of the times I don't find it. And if I don't find it, I'm very loath to actually take that shot. But some days you can sort of, you can't step 10 meters without peeling off 500 fantastic shots. And that's kind of just the way this ebb and flows about when you go out and take photographs. And with the work that I do for the newspapers and VicPol, because my work is so engaging with the subjects, that I'm a very firm believer in that with portrait photography, portraiture is always self-portraiture, because you're photographing someone's response to you. So the more that you engage with your subject, the more you kind of have to collaborate with them to get a shot that tells a story or kind of creates a narrative. But with street photography, it's the complete opposite. I intentionally carry a small camera. I go out of my way not to engage with people. And I try and see how close I can actually get without kind of being captured or caught or, losing the spontaneity of a moment. And images like this one of old mate kind of just peering into the site of the new underground tunnel at Melbourne Square site. It's about, wide angle lens, getting a little bit closer, but just trying to edge forward and just trying to see what you can kind of bring to that moment. And what I like most about this picture, and it's the fact that he's actually looking at me in the reflection, and it takes a couple of seconds to kind of work out that he's very aware of my presence. I'm very close, and I'm kind of testing that boundary of how close I can actually walk up to him and get that shot. So things like reflections and light and gesturing and kind of fishing in interesting locations are kind of where I like to, place myself in terms of where I take photographs. So this kind of images is something that, it's far away removed from portraiture photography, because it's just capturing things without actually engaging with subjects as well. Whoops. So this is where things go pear-shaped for me, because I'm not entirely sure that I can Oh, there we go. You've got that one there. So this one was actually for Moomba. So pre-lockdown, we had this thing called Moomba, where masses of people would gather outdoors and go on rides and buy show bags and eat sugar and do all sorts of crazy and wonderful things. And again, kind of this chap was walking down the street with Kermit strapped to his back. And I always think that with street photography in particular, like a really engaging image has to have 3 or 4 elements to it. It has to have that first punch and then the follow-up, you know, a couple of jabs and a cross to kind of make you really engage in that image. So for me, the guy with the Kermit on his back was the hook. And then just wandering around, I think I followed this guy. Again, Adam, not enough to get a restraining order, but just close enough to kind of find something else to throw into the frame as well. So the chap in the street, in the seat in the foreground was kind enough to brush something out of his eye at the exact moment. And then I love the idea of kind of capturing something that's there in an instant and then it's gone straight away. So yeah, kind of if there's one element, then you need to find 2 or 3 other elements to kind of bring that into that scope as well.
And what I find interesting, this one, you've chosen black and white. I think of Kermit and I think of that green straight away. Yeah, you've gone for black and white. Why the choice there?
It's a funny thing. So with newspapers, we don't print black and white anymore. I was old enough to grow up photographing with film in newspapers, and I remember getting film allocations at the start of the week, and you had, you know, 10 rolls of 800 and 50 rolls of 100, and you had to kind of make that stretch throughout the week. But a lot of the times, if you shot in color, it all went to black and white and newsprint. So these days, I kind of, again, drawing that disconnection between work photography and street photography, because everything I do is in color. I really revel the idea of shooting in black and white because it's so removed from the work that I do professionally. And you're 100% right, because actually the text on the ground in the foreground on the left-hand side is actually bright green as well. And so with Kermit being green and the text green, and there was a sort of other green elements in there, it really did work in color. But I just can't bring myself to kind of pull that color in as well.
Fair enough. And Mike Reed asked, do you crop?
I try not to. I do teach at PSC, and I'm very fastidious in how do I put it politely, encouraging my students not to crop. By all means, you know, tucking in images and kind of bringing things in very, very slightly. But I think it was Kappa that said, if your images aren't good enough, you're not close enough. I think decisions that you make with camera in hand should really reflect how the final image looks. But having said that, yeah, I still probably don't preach what I say. I still kind of crop little things in here and there. But I think with the camera that I've got, you always kind of, you never see what you're actually getting. So there's a little bit of freedom about looking through the viewfinder and just letting things happen and sort of haphazardly coming in. But the other thing I like about street photography in cinema, there's this narrative called the uncanny valley, where if things are too real, it doesn't feel real. So with street photography, I think we almost have this license to have things that aren't quite balanced and aren't quite real, because it makes us remember that these moments are quite organic and they just happen. So if it's almost too perfect, then it's not street photography for me. There has to have a bit of you know, serendipity about framework that I think, you know, lends itself to the moment.
Well, I'll just go, Ananda supports your choice of black and white. He thinks that color might be a distraction for that shot.
Thank you, Ananda. I agree with that. Kermit the Frog can be quite distracting, especially it ain't easy being green, I think was one of his narratives as well. Yeah.
Karen asked, what camera do you use?
Unfortunately, Ananda, I might lose you here. I like a Type 240 with a 28mm lens. So yeah, always with Canon with work. And I know gear's not the whole thing, but yeah, I just love, because especially with working in press, you carry around so much gear. Like I'm talking massive cameras, and people are very aware of you when you carry all that camera gear. But when you're doing street, just a little camera that's quite innocuous, I think people are very dismissive of that, and that allows you the opportunity to get in close and to do things that you can't do as a press photographer, because people clock you as soon as you walk anywhere near what you're doing.
And Mike Reed said, and I actually don't understand this, but Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley. The best way to describe it is, if you've ever seen the movie with Tom Hanks, the animation about Christmas, it's the North Pole, Polar Express. That movie's disturbing because it's so real. The animations are so real, and that kind of crosses the uncanny valley. And I think, you know, commercial work has this idea of being perfect in terms of the lighting and the composition, and everything kind of works. And for me, that transcends the uncanny valley a little bit. I prefer to work inside that idea of things that aren't perfect and things that are a little bit, you know, fortuitous, if you will. Yeah, so uncanny valley, just Google it. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, this one, so there's about 3 places in Melbourne that I kind of go back to again and again and again, and the GPO is one of them. GPO for me, and I loved seeing all the shots, that there was a lot of GPO representation in this year's SITHOM, and I just thought the building, it attracts light in such a beautiful way, and people move through that space, you know, they're sort of very peak Melbourne. And this one, the gentleman in the background who's wearing a mask with the white shirt was kind of what drew my attention. So I kind of clocked him as I walked past, and I kind of positioned myself in this area to get him in the background, because I wanted him to be that first element. And then the guy with the bike on the right of the frame was coming from the left-hand side, and I sort of waited for him to go in. And any of us who sort of wait for people to move into our frame to take a photograph, as soon as you hold the camera up, people stop very obligingly and wait for you to take that photograph and look at you as if to say, well, take the photograph, photographer, so I can move through. And you are my photograph, so I'm actually waiting for you to move through that space. So it was a matter of kind of framing and just kind of holding the camera down, waiting till he moved past. And then when he got into the center of the frame, I took the shot, but then he moved to the edge, and then the lady in the back kind of occupied that middle space. And I just took another frame sort of almost unintentionally. And then looking at the images, this one became the better shot, because she held the frame in the middle, and then the guy who in the bike, who I intended to be the main character, had drifted out and sort of became this edge of frame element. So again, serendipity plays a massive part in it, but I think if you find one thing that kind of piques your interest, you can use that in an image, and then wait for other things to kind of fall into place as well. And you know what, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work, and then you sort of continue sipping your coffee and walk down the street, and you kind of lament what could have been, but sometimes it sort of does all fall together and kind of creates quite a nice moment for you. And I think the last one was this one here. So again, this idea of proximity. I think this day I actually was doing a job for The Age on Swanston Street, and I remember thinking, I saw this lady smoking in this morning light, which is coming up over Fed Square, and I remember thinking The Age is not going to be interested in this photo. So I put my work camera down and picked up my street camera and kind of edged forward, and then I had a lot of gear hanging off me, but I still managed to get quite close to her, and she was so engaged in her cigarette, and again, the bin on the left-hand side is actually throwing a little bit of light back in towards her, which is kind of filling in quite nicely, and just underexposing the scene and kind of getting her and that little moment where she's lost in her early morning cigarette. Not being a smoker, I couldn't think of anything worse than sort of lighting up in the morning. But again, I'm really, really close, and it always astounds me how close you can actually get to people without you know, piquing their interest and sort of upsetting them in any sense. Obviously, in the last year and a half, it's been 1.5 meters, which is our proximity. But when it comes to street, you know, things like this, yeah, I just love how the camera can render things that we see quite differently in a really beautiful way. So, yeah, just to reiterate that whole idea of not engaging subjects compared to my work, which is really engaging subjects. I think if I was there to photograph her for a news story, I'd spend 45 minutes chatting with her before I actually took the photograph. But with street, I'm allowed to go in there and just capture the moment as it is. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got to say.
Awesome, thanks, Scott. Does anyone have any further questions for Scott? Just type them into the chat, and I'll just go. So do you find that doing street photography like reconnects you back with your photography after professional, or you know, almost, yeah, pretty much reconnects your photography? I know another photographer, Brent Lukey. I don't know if you know Brent, and he sort of loves. He's a professional photographer, and the street photography for him reminds him of his love for photography. Yeah,
it's pure. I absolutely love it, and it's like I said. So I've been lucky enough to be able to still keep working during lockdown. So I've joked that I've seen Dan Andrews more than I've seen my own kids for the last 2 years, because we've done so many press conferences, and you know, that goddamn purple wall, if I have to photograph that again, it's going to drive me insane. But we've all been glued to it, so we've had to go in and photograph and reimagine that same thing again and again and again. And I think with you know, work photography, you're always being told what to photograph, when to photograph it, and how to photograph it. And even though press photography still has its you know, we still get to decide a lot of the elements of it, but we're still adhering to the story, the guideline, and the print and all sorts of things. But with street photography, when you step out into the big bad world, there's no agenda, there's no timeline, there's no, you know, you have to get a photograph, you have to get it in. You can just photograph, just absolutely go out and shoot. And for me, you know, drinking coffee and walking around, and again, Adam afterwards taking the beers. I think have the coffee first and then the shooting and then the beers. That's the natural progression of things. But for me, that's just, it's awesome. I love doing it. Anyone who's, you know, again, connected to traveling, if you go to Paris and walk around Paris, you know, it's such a beautiful city to photograph because, you know, we're not Parisian, so we enjoy it from a different way. But to be able to do that same thing and look at Melbourne through our own eyes, I think is sensational. And photographers lead a charmed existence because we see things differently. We notice things. We notice, you know, bits of pockets of light here and there, and gestures and people and characters who move in and out of our lenses and kind of our frames. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. And sometimes, you know, you capture the moment, sometimes you don't. But with street photography, there's no pressure. There's just the absolute chance to be who you want, when you want, and why you want.
Awesome. And a couple more. Do you carry your personal camera when working?
I do. A, I don't like to leave it locked in the car. And B, there's this interesting thing that happens with portraiture. And if someone's really, really shy about being photographed, I've never been in the age. I don't want to be in the age. I think it's really intimidating being photographed to be in a newspaper. But when you set up a light and bring up a big camera, there's a physical thing that happens, and people kind of lean back a little bit when they're presented with that huge camera. But when you have a little camera, there's a different thing that happens. People actually engage and they kind of lean a bit forward, and they actually want to know a little bit about the camera. They want to, you know, ask about, oh, is that film or is that digital? And so the physicality of the size of the camera has a really interesting kind of connect with the people that you photograph as well. So sometimes if someone's really nervous and the big camera is intimidating them, I will abandon it and just pull out a little camera and just shoot, a little bit more anonymously like that.
And Sue asked, do you pre-visualize any of your street photographic scenes?
Great question. I try to. So I try to think of what aspects will make an interesting photograph, but at the same time, things are so completely nuanced that when you have an idea, things go completely pear-shaped. I know when I get target fixation, I'm always looking at individual subjects. I'm looking at light. I'm looking at how I can kind of put things together. And sometimes I will miss other shots because I'm so fixated on light. But if I'm pre-visualizing, especially if I'm fishing in a particular spot where I know the light's quite good, I'll try and look for a gesture. But things like, say, the Kermit shot, you can't predict that someone's going to put their hand up at the right time, or, you know, that this lady's going to stare longingly at her cigarette at the right moment. All you can do is kind of bear witness and try to be at the right place at the right time with an idea in mind. And again, you know, this idea of reactive and proactive photography, I think as street photographers, we tend to be more reactive because we're reacting to the street that's in front of us. Whereas with you know, newspaper photography, you can probably be a bit more proactive and say, you know, can you stand over here and do this? Whereas with street photography, it's like, wow, someone's standing over there doing that. So two very different streams of it. But in an ideal world, maybe, yeah, I probably should start to pre-visualize a bit more as well.
Awesome. So that's it for the question. So thanks, Scott. Appreciate your time. And
Cool.
I know you live around the corner from us. So how about when this is over, we catch up for a coffee, beer, and shoot?
More than happy to. I think we could do something in the West, and that would be, yeah, pretty awesome.
Sorry, Ananda just threw in one last question. Does your non-work style bring inspiration to your work techniques?
It does. So I'm kind of lucky. The Age, they know that I do this, and so if they need something done with, you know, empty Melbourne streets with COVID, they will unleash me into the street with, you know, an open brief to go photograph things as well, which I love. And I think they run the pick desk in such a nice way that they, horses for courses, they will send particular photographers to particular jobs. And so I guess I kind of like the street stuff. But again, when there's a pick desk that's calling on you saying, have you got the shot? Have you got the shot? It kind of pollutes that purpose again. So I try to contrive it a little bit with them, but at the same time, you know, the pure street stuff is what I enjoy the absolute most.
So I send you to the protest then?
I have been so lucky to avoid all the protests. I keep asking Dan Andrews if he wants to come homeschool my kids. So I tend to get the press conferences more than anything else, but I'm actually on tomorrow. So I'm not sure what's planned for tomorrow, but I'm starting at 7 a.m. So if anyone plans on protesting, can you send me a text message? Because I'd like to get there early and just, you know, suit up, ready to go.
Thanks again, mate. That was great.
Cool, no worries.
Okay, so we'll go move on to our final presenter, Leonie Rogers. Or I think a number of people here know her as Floss. So how are you, Leonie? I can't see you on my screen. Are you here, Leonie? I've got you in my attendees, but
I think you might be on mute there, Leonie.
I'm on mute. I'm sorry. I was just going to say it took Susan and Adrian some convincing to get me to present tonight, because I really didn't think I've got much to offer, but I'll bore you with some details anyway and see how we go. I guess start with my journey into photography and how I got to ASPI. I was a kid in primary school and high school that always had a camera in my hand at school camp and God knows what, which was, started with the little Kodak Instamatic with the bulb flash on top. And I've just always been taking photos, I guess, and enjoying photos. When other school kids were covering their school books with pretty paper, I was cutting up National Geographics and photos and plastering my school books with amazing pics from all over the world, which I found fascinating. And then I guess it just morphed into, you get married, children, you're always taking photos of your kids. I'm fortunate that my husband is into photography. Not that he takes the photos, but he enjoys cameras and all the technical side of things. So he always supports me in having, I guess, decent gear and helps me work out what I need and what works and what doesn't, which is really good. And then I guess as the kids got older and I had more time, a girlfriend and myself with our Nikon D90s, we did a camera course locally. So I got off shooting just on auto and learned the technical side of things. Then we joined a local camera club. So went out shooting with the camera club and sort of learned from them as well. And then 10 years ago when the kids were older and we were freer, we did lots of overseas travel. So been to, well, something that hopefully we'll get back into again one day soon, but did lots of overseas trips. So I was always taking photos of our travels, be it landscape or just street stuff, although I didn't really know what street photography was back then. So then a girlfriend said, oh, you should share your photos on Instagram. So once you get on Instagram and you start looking at other people's photos and discovering like Julia Coddington and others that I started following and really enjoyed looking at street stuff. And I guess it sort of, I never really knew that street existed until I got onto Instagram and started following all these people. And then the more travel we did, I was with my husband as my pack horse, carrying all my gear, and I would book photography tours in major cities so we could go and like just day tours, and they would take you to fascinating places that you wouldn't find on your own, which was always really interesting. And my husband enjoyed them because not only were you walking the streets and these amazing cities and seeing things and down alleyways that you would never discover on your own, you would get history and all sorts of other stuff as well. So it was always, he would enjoy that side of it, which was really good. So we did, I did photography tours in Santorini, Vienna, London, Istanbul, Bali, Portugal, Morocco. Then I ended up doing a 2-week photography tour in India with a couple of friends, local friends, which was amazing. That was back in 2018, I think. So it sort of just all evolved from that. And then I found Women in Street and Unexposed Collective, and sort of I thought, yeah, I've found my tribe. This is what I love. This is what I enjoy. So I guess that's how it came to be. So what else? I guess maybe, Adrian, if you could share, the first photo would be the lady with the red hair. Have you got? Yeah, so this was earlier this year. So because I'm 2 hours from Melbourne, if I'm going to go down to an ASPI meet or something, I tend to make a day of it. So I'll go down early in the morning and try and spend a full day walking around with the camera. So because I don't get there often enough, and in between lockdowns, and you'd make a dash, you know, a few weeks, you'd think, oh, I've got to get to Melbourne, I haven't been for ages. I think on this particular day, I was on my own for a while, and I think I might have met up with you, Em, later on in the day. I really can't remember in between which lockdowns this was. It may have been about March, I'm not 100% sure. I tend to always go back to my favourite spots, whether it's Centre Place and a few other laneways, and I hadn't been to, is this the other end of Centre Place? Not Centre Place, someone help me out. Can't remember. Anyway, I know I'd been to this spot before because
Melbourne Central.
Melbourne Central, thank you. And I thought, oh, I'll go back there and have a look. And I loitered around there for quite a while, actually, which sometimes I have to make myself move because I just get so, I don't know, into what I'm doing and forget that I might look a bit weird. Especially, I think this photo, I was with my, I was using the Nikon, so it's not like I've got a little small camera, so it was quite obvious. And it just happened that this lady with the red hair came along, and I was, grabbed that photo and was super excited. On the same day, I actually got a gentleman as well with red hair, which was quite bizarre. But funnily enough, this photo, I was at my local camera club a few months ago, and I was talking about what photos I had in the ASPI exhibition, and I was showing them, and the president said, oh, when did you take this photo? I said, oh, earlier this year sometime. He said, that's my stepdaughter. She lives in Melbourne. It's quite bizarre. So I knew when I got that with her red hair and with the red surrounds that, it would be a nice shot. And I do like bright, bold colours as well, although I will dabble in black and white if I think colour is too distracting, which the next two are black and white. So the next one, which maybe the smoking lady, Adrian. So these next two photos were taken on our, I think it was our last meeting when we took photos in the evening with the ASPI group. Was that the last time we got together? Maybe.
Yeah, it was pretty close to the last time, I reckon.
Yeah. So once again, I went down for the whole day. So I know we met later in the afternoon, but I spent the morning on my own just walking around with the camera. And I happened to run into Julia, who was there with Yanni. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Anyway, I saw her and sort of started hanging around and shooting with Julia, because I've also got a Fuji X-T20, which I got a few years ago when I decided that the Nikon was just too big and heavy for street stuff. So, but I'm still yet to be really confident with my settings and using the Fuji as I am with the Nikon. So whenever I see Julia, I know she uses Fuji as well, so I'm always at her, what settings are you using, and asking all these questions. So I sort of hung around with these guys for a few hours before we met up with the rest. And I guess being with Julia gives you confidence to get up close, which is what I did. And we were hung around the GPO and for quite a while. And I really, I think this was just luck. In some photos, it's just luck. I just, and it worked as a black and white shot. It really was no good in color, but I don't even know if I realized I'd got it at the time. Sometimes when you get home and you're going through your photos and editing and deleting like 3/4 of them, and you think, oh, okay, that's not so bad after all. And the last one, the other one, was when we were all walking around in the evening down Swanston. So the girl with the bubble, Adrian, with the, Yep. So we all headed off, and I was trying with flash, without flash. I'm thinking I've never done nighttime stuff, like sort of street nighttime anyway, so I had no clue what I was doing. I ended up using my Nikon. I went back to the Nikon because I put on my 35mm lens, which gave me a bit more light. And honestly, I was just shooting randomly and had no clue. I thought, if I come away with a picture tonight, I'll be really happy. Really didn't expect to get anything. Didn't know I'd got that expression on her face once again until I got home and went through the photos and thought, oh, okay. I think it was the one and only decent shot of that evening, but I was pretty happy with it. Once again, it didn't work in colour at all. So putting it in black and white, yeah. But I think that was the last time I've been shooting in Melbourne. Haven't been down since, obviously, because of lockdowns, etc. So that's about it.
Thanks for that. Ananda says all you need is one decent shot, and that's a fab one.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with that one, but yeah,
That's right. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions for Leonie? Just type them into the chat. Russell says it's a lovely set of images, and Jane does as well, says great shots.
Thank you.
So, well, that'll conclude our, sorry, Sally says, love the smoking woman, Floss. Right word.
Thanks.
Sue asks, with the red image, were you waiting for a while?
Yeah, I was sort of in that spot for a good, 20 minutes, half an hour, I think, looking up the stairs, looking across, taking all sorts of angles and bits and pieces. And I just remember that woman with the red hair walking by thinking, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like, I was meant to be here. So I think after I got that and the guy with the red hair, that was done. I thought, I'm not going to beat this. I'm out of here.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Leonie. I appreciate your time tonight, and I'll hand back to Russell.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and thank you to everyone that has presented tonight. Thank you for your time and wonderful stories behind the images. I find it always interesting to hear the story and how people go about their crafts. So it's been a fantastic evening. So, okay, I'd like to take this chance to send out a call out for those who have images in this year's SITHOM and would like to present in next week's session. So just judging by the numbers that attended the last 2 weeks, it looks like the membership would love to hear more stories about your images. So I'm sure that Adrian, Sue, or Emma will hunt you down if you're not going to stick your hand up. So yeah, that'd be great if you could. And hopefully tonight's given you some inspiration to go out there and try a few things out when you can. I know we get 2 hours walking around. I usually take my camera too, and I don't know, just have a good story if you ever get pulled over by the police, but I say it's for my mental health. So there you go. And just to finish up, it's still in lockdown, but SITHOM is still on virtually. So head over to the ASPI website and take a tour of the total exhibition and check out our YouTube channel for past episodes of the speaker series. If you have not done already, just click on the subscribe button. Okay, so next week, hopefully we'll plan to do this again. If not, there will be 8 p.m. on Tuesday, the 14th of September, session with Melbourne-based photographer Kim Boyd. But I'm pretty sure we'll get another speaker series for SITHOM up next week. So that is it. Thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll see you on the streets real soon. So stay safe and good night. And the speakers, if you want to hang around, you can come hang around and we'll have a chat. Thank you.